My sister slipped a stolen necklace into my purse and then called the police on me. She stood in the middle of the living room sobbing, pointing straight at me, and my parents took her side without a second of doubt. When the officer reached into my bag, I felt like the ground beneath me was giving way. But what he pulled out after that changed everything. Before I tell you how it all unfolded, make sure you subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. My name is Alina. I'm 22 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the quiet, responsible one in my family. I'm in college, juggling classes while working part-time at a cafe to cover my tuition. I've always followed the rules, kept my grades up, showed up on time, and stayed out of trouble. I thought that if I worked hard enough and stayed out of the spotlight, things would eventually fall into place. But in my family, that was never enough. My younger sister, Sierra, is 2 years younger than me, and she has always been the center of everything. She's loud, charming, dramatic, and she knows exactly how to bend people to her will. Growing up, she was praised for her personality, her confidence, her spark. I was the dependable one, the one expected to keep things together and not complain. When Sierra messed up, my parents rushed to defend her. When I made even a small mistake, it was treated like a disappointment. My mom, Rebecca, used to say things like, "Sierra just has that special spark. Alina, you should try to be more like her." My dad, Paul, rarely said much at all, but his silence always felt like agreement. I loved them, but it was impossible to ignore the imbalance. No matter what I did, Sierra always came first. Even so, I tried to keep the peace. I told myself that patience would pay off, that one day they'd see me for who I really was, honest, hardworking, and loyal. But Sierra understood her role perfectly, and she used it to her advantage. She knew she could push boundaries and get away with it, and she knew exactly how to make me look small in the process. One evening at dinner, Sierra showed off a necklace she'd recently bought. It caught the light every time she moved, and she made sure everyone noticed. I looked at it briefly, admired it quietly, and said nothing. Complimenting her only fed her ego, and she never stopped at one. She glanced across the table at me and smirked. "Don't you wish you had something like this, Alina?" she said. "Maybe if you weren't so boring, you could." Heat rushed to my face, but I stayed silent. I was used to her jabs. What I didn't know then was that this necklace would become the weapon she used to tear my world apart. The night everything truly unraveled started like any other family gathering. My parents had invited relatives over, and the house was filled with chatter, food, and laughter. I helped my mom in the kitchen while Sierra floated through the rooms, soaking up attention. She wore the necklace again, touching it constantly, smiling every time someone complimented her. When I carried a tray of drinks into the living room, she leaned toward me and whispered, "Careful, Alina, don't spill anything on my necklace. You wouldn't want to ruin something you can't afford." I clenched my jaw and walked away. I'd learned that reacting only made things worse. As the night went on, people began to leave. That's when Sierra suddenly cried out, "My necklace! It's gone!" Her voice was sharp, panicked, and instantly drew everyone's attention. The room fell silent. My mom rushed to her side. "What do you mean it's gone?" she asked, alarmed. Sierra clutched her chest dramatically. "I had it on just a few minutes ago. Now it's missing. Someone stole it." Everyone began searching, checking the floor, the couch cushions, the tables. At first, I assumed it had fallen off or been misplaced, but then Sierra's eyes locked onto me. "I saw Alina near my bag earlier," she said, suddenly pointing at me with shaking fingers. "She probably took it. She's always been jealous of me." My heart dropped. "What? No," I said quickly. "I never touched your things. Why would you say that?" Her eyes filled with perfectly timed tears as she grabbed onto our mom's arm. "She's always resented me, Mom. She hates that I get attention. She wanted to take something that was mine." The mood in the room shifted instantly. Relatives whispered. My mom's face hardened. My dad wouldn't look at me. "Alina," my mom said firmly, "just show us your purse. If you didn't take it, you have nothing to hide." My chest tightened with humiliation. "Are you serious? You really believe her?" "Enough," my mom snapped. "If you're innocent, prove it." My hands shook as I picked at my purse. I wanted to leave, to scream, to disappear, but I knew that would only make me look guilty. Before anyone could look inside, Sierra folded her arms and said loudly, "No, we should call the police. This is theft." I stared at her in disbelief. "Sierra, this is insane. It's just a necklace." She cut me off. "It's expensive. It's mine. I'm calling the police." And she did, right there in front of everyone. My parents didn't stop her. When the officer arrived, the entire atmosphere changed. He asked questions calmly, professionally, and then turned to me. "Miss, may I see your purse?" I handed it over, my heart racing. I knew I hadn't taken anything, but Sierra's smug expression made my stomach churn. He unzipped the bag and reached inside. When he pulled the necklace out, gasps filled the room. My mom looked devastated. My dad shook his head. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "No," I whispered, "that's not possible. I didn't put that there." Sierra stepped forward, her voice dripping with false sorrow. "I told you, she's always been jealous." I begged my parents to believe me, but they wouldn't meet my eyes. The officer didn't speak right away. He studied me carefully. "May I continue searching your purse?" "Please," I said, "check everything." For the first time that night, Sierra looked nervous. "Why?" she protested. "You already found it." The officer ignored her and began removing the contents one by one, laying them neatly on the table. Then he ran his fingers along the lining of the purse and paused. "There's something else here," he said quietly. He opened a small hidden seam I didn't even know existed and pulled out a folded piece of paper and a tiny velvet pouch. My breath caught. He opened the pouch first. Inside was a crumpled pawn shop receipt. He unfolded it, read it carefully, and then looked straight at Sierra. "This receipt is for a bracelet sold earlier today. The seller's name matches yours, Sierra Rhodes." The entire room froze. "What?" my mom whispered. She turned to Sierra, confusion written all over her face. "You sold jewelry today?" Sierra's face went pale. "That's not mine," she stammered. "She's setting me up. She probably planted it there herself." Detective Collins' voice sharpened. "Miss Rhodes, this was hidden inside your sister's purse. If she were the thief, why would she also have a receipt with your name on it? That doesn't make sense." My father finally spoke, his voice heavy. "Sierra, tell me the truth." But Sierra's usual confidence was gone. She shook her head quickly, her voice breaking. "No, I don't know how it got there. This is all wrong." I stood there trembling, not just from fear anymore, but from the surge of hope building in my chest. For the first time in years, the spotlight was shifting away from me and onto her. Detective Collins tucked the receipt into an evidence bag. He looked at my parents and then back at Sierra. "There's a strong possibility your daughter staged this entire thing. Until I investigate further, I can't say for sure, but what I've seen so far doesn't line up with her story." My mom looked stunned. She opened her mouth, closed it, and then finally whispered, "Sierra, why?" Sierra didn't answer. She just stood there, eyes darting wildly, her perfect lie starting to crumble. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the powerless sister begging to be heard. I had spoken up, I had stood my ground, and now the truth was beginning to surface. The room felt like it was holding its breath. My parents stared at Sierra, waiting for her to explain, but for the first time in her life, she had no clever excuse. Her mouth opened and closed as she searched for words that would make everything disappear. The confidence that usually oozed out of her was gone, replaced by a panicked look I had never seen before. Detective Collins kept his voice steady, but there was no mistaking the edge of authority in it. "Sierra, the receipt has your name, your signature, and the exact time you sold the bracelet today. Yet here you are accusing your sister of stealing your necklace. Can you explain why you were pawning jewelry that supposedly belongs to you?" Sierra's cheeks flushed deep red. "That's not what it looks like. I didn't pawn it. Someone must have stolen my ID or something. She pointed at me suddenly. "She probably did it. She could have forged my name." Collins didn't even flinch. "Pawn shops take identification. This receipt wouldn't exist without your ID. If we check the shop's cameras, we'll see who made that sale, and I'm willing to bet it wasn't your sister." My father's face turned pale as realization began to settle over him. "Sierra, you lied." His voice cracked. part anger, part heartbreak. "No, Dad, I didn't, I swear," she pleaded, but her voice was shrill, desperate. She looked like a child caught in a lie, grasping for straws. My mother, who had always defended her, stepped closer, holding the receipt in her trembling hands. "Sierra, why would you do this? Why would you set up your own sister?" Tears spilled down Sierra's cheeks, but they didn't look genuine anymore. They looked like the kind of tears you shed when the walls are closing in. I needed money, okay? I sold the bracelet, but I was going to replace it before anyone noticed. Then I couldn't find the necklace and thought—" "You thought what?" I cut in, my voice shaking with anger. "That ruining me would somehow make it easier? That having me humiliated in front of everyone would distract them from what you were doing?" She glared at me through her tears, her jaw tight. "You don't understand. You're always the perfect one. You get good grades, you work, you never mess up. Everyone always expects me to live up to that. I just wanted them to look at me for once and see that I was worth something." I almost laughed at the bitterness of it. "Worth something? You made me out to be a thief just to protect your image. You didn't care if I lost everything. You just wanted the attention." The silence that followed was deafening. My parents looked shattered. My mom covered her mouth with her hand, shaking her head. "All these years, I thought I was protecting you, but all I did was let you hurt your sister." Detective Collins cleared his throat. "For now, I'll be filing a report on this incident. Sierra, you could be facing serious consequences for making a false claim and attempting to frame someone else. If the pawnshop footage confirms what I suspect, this matter won't just stay within this family." Sierra gasped, her tears falling harder now. "No, please, I didn't mean for it to go this far." But the damage was done. Her perfect lie had cracked wide open, and there was no putting it back together. My father finally turned to me, his voice heavy with guilt. "Alina, I am so sorry. We should have believed you. We should have given you the same trust we always gave her." I swallowed hard, blinking back my own tears. "All I ever wanted was for you to see me for who I am, not who she says I am." Collins gathered the evidence, the necklace, the receipt, and even the pouch Sierra had hidden. "I'll be in touch," he said firmly before leaving. The moment the door closed behind him, the weight of everything came crashing down. Sierra stood frozen in the living room, tears streaking her face. But this time, no one rushed to comfort her. My mom sat down heavily, staring at the floor, while my dad walked away to the kitchen, shaking his head. The silence between us was louder than any argument we had ever had. For the first time in years, I felt like the truth was finally visible, not twisted by Sierra's stories, not brushed aside by my parents' blind defense of her, but real and undeniable. They saw me now. They saw what I had been living with. I looked at Sierra one last time. "You tried to bury me with your lies, but you buried yourself instead." She didn't answer. She just looked away, unable to meet my eyes. And in that moment, I knew things would never go back to the way they were. The house felt different after Detective Collins left. It was quieter, heavier, as if the truth had sucked all the energy out of the walls. My parents sat in silence, and Sierra lingered by the staircase, her eyes red from crying, but her face still tense, as if she was searching for a way out of the mess she had created. I stood there in the middle of the room, caught between anger, sadness, and relief. For years, I had been the invisible one, the daughter who blended into the background while my sister shined in the spotlight. I had been doubted, ignored, and sometimes even blamed for things I didn't do. But tonight, everything flipped. For the first time, Sierra's lies didn't work. For the first time, my parents saw her manipulations for what they were. And for the first time, they finally saw me. My mom broke the silence. Her voice was quiet, shaky. "Alina, I don't know what to say. We were wrong. I was wrong." She looked at me with eyes that seemed older, wearier than they had earlier that day. "I've spent so much time protecting Sierra, defending her, and I never realized how much damage I was doing to you." I swallowed hard. Part of me wanted to accept her apology right away, to pretend everything could be fine again, but another part of me needed to sit with the pain I had carried for so long. "I just needed you to believe me," I said softly. "That's all I ever wanted." My dad stepped closer, guilt heavy in his voice. "We should have trusted you. We let ourselves be blinded by Sierra's act, and we failed you as parents. I can't take back what happened, but I promise it won't happen again." Their words mattered, but I couldn't ignore the ache in my chest. It wasn't just about this one night. It was about years of being compared, dismissed, and doubted. I realized forgiveness wouldn't come in a single conversation. It would take time, and it would take actions, not just words. Sierra finally spoke, her voice small. "I didn't mean for it to get this bad," she sniffled, wiping her face. I felt like no one cared about me unless I was the center of attention. I thought if Alina looked guilty, I would look better." Her words stung, but they also revealed something I hadn't expected: insecurity. For all her confidence and dramatic flair, Sierra had been desperate for validation, but that didn't excuse what she did. "You hurt me, Sierra," I said firmly. "You didn't just try to ruin my reputation, you called the police on me. You were ready to let me take the blame for something I didn't do. That's not just sibling rivalry, that's betrayal." She looked down at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. For once, she didn't have a comeback. The next few days were strange. My parents tiptoed around me, trying to show me extra kindness. Sierra avoided me, spending most of her time locked in her room. The necklace incident became the unspoken shadow hanging over the house. But for me, it was also a turning point. I realized I didn't need to fight for my parents' recognition anymore. I had spent years hoping they would finally see me, but in chasing that, I had let their approval hold too much power over my life. That night, when the truth came out, I saw something clearly for the first time. I already knew who I was. I was honest, I was hard work, and no amount of lies could take that away from me. The relief was powerful. Yes, I was hurt, and yes, trust would take time to rebuild, but I no longer felt invisible. I wasn't the weak, forgettable daughter. I was the one who stood tall even when the world turned against me. Eventually, Sierra faced consequences, not just from the family, but legally too. Detective Collins followed up, and the pawnshop footage confirmed what we already knew. Sierra had sold the bracelet herself. While the case didn't lead to anything severe, it left a permanent mark. Her credibility with my parents was shattered. As for me, I walked away with a lesson I will carry for the rest of my life. Lies might shine for a moment, but truth always breaks through. My sister tried to bury me with her deceit, but in the end, she buried herself. To anyone listening to my story, I want you to know this. If you've ever been the one nobody believed, the one who stood accused when you were innocent, hold on to your truth, because when the lies fall apart, and they always do, your honesty will be the thing that stands. And if you take one thing from me today, let it be this: never let someone else's version of you replace the real one. You know who you are, and eventually others will see it too. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more powerful stories like this, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your thoughts.